So let's create our edit action, and this one will have both HTTP GET and HTTP POST. With the HTTP GET, we will get the song that the user wants to edit, and with the POST, we will submit the modifications that the user makes. So let's mark this one as HTTP GET, and let's create the action. So it's gonna return iAction result, and I'll call it edit. And we need to pass in the ID of the song that we want to edit. And the ID is an integer, so we'll pass in an ID of integer. And I mentioned before, this ID has to be the same as we have in our index over here. In our route, we are passing an ID as an argument, so that's gonna be our song ID. So in the song controller for the edit, we need to name it ID as well. So let's create a view back, and it's gonna be again the action property, and we are editing, so I'll call this one edit. And what we need is to get the song that we want to edit. So we'll create a variable, I'll call it song, and we'll go to our context dot songs, and songs is our DB set, so we will go through all the songs, and we will use the find method to find the song we want. And the find method needs an ID or a key of the song that we want. So we will pass in the ID, which is the argument passed into this action. So that gives us the song that we are editing. And now we can simply return a view. And in the view, we will return the song. So this is the song that we are editing. So now with this, we can populate the text boxes with the values of this song and then let the user edit them. So now let's create a post version of the edit. So it's gonna be HTTP post. Let's create the action. So it's gonna be public iAction result. And again, it's gonna be called edit. And this one will submit the song into the database with whatever modifications the user made. So here, we need to pass in the whole object of the song, because we don't know what property the user changed, so we will pass in all three properties, and we will update the record in the database. So we'll pass in the song object, and I'll call it song. Since this is a post action, we need to make sure that everything is okay, meaning that the song actually exists. So we can use an if statement and check if the model state is valid. So if the model state that is valid, then we can proceed and save everything in the database. However, remember, this post action is also going to add a new record. We are using it for both adding and editing. And the difference is that if we are adding a new song, then there is no ID yet. The ID is created later by the entity framework. When we are editing a song, this song has to have an ID. It's an existing song. So here we can simply check whether we are adding new song or editing by checking if the song ID is 0. Because if it is 0, then we are adding a new song. And if it is anything other than 0, then it's an existing song and we are performing a modification. So let's do an if statement and check if the song.songID equals 0. And if it is, then we are adding a song. So we'll go to our context .songs DB set, and we will add a new song. So we'll use the add method and pass the song object. Otherwise, meaning the song ID is not 0, then we'll go to our context songs dataset, and we will perform the update. And for the update, we too pass the song object to it. So either we are adding or editing a record. Now remember, the add and update only marks the record as being added or updated. However, the actual update or addition is only done when we save the changes. So after this, we'll go to our context and we'll call the save changes method. So this one will actually perform the operation on the database. So what do we do after we edit or add new record? Well, we basically want to return back to our index action on the home controller. We want to go to the home page. So here we will go and do return statement, and we are not returning any value. Instead, we are returning to redirect to action. And redirect to action requires parameters. First, what action we are redirecting to, and that's the index. And then what controller we are redirecting to, and that is the home controller. So we'll go to a home page. So this is if the model state is okay. If it is not okay, I use the else statement. So if there is something wrong, we want to stay on the same page that we are currently. So I'll go and get the viewback action. And the viewback action is gonna be either add or edit. And once again, this is based on the ID. If the ID is 0, it's gonna be add. Otherwise, it's gonna be edit. And we can use an if statement for that, or this is a simple ternary operator, so we can go and check if the song.song ID equals 0. And if that's the case, then the action for our viewback is gonna be add. Otherwise, it's gonna be edit. And like I said, we stay on the same page, so we will return a view, and we will pass into it the same song that we got into this action. So nothing will change because there is something wrong with the model, so the user needs to actually fix it first. But we don't want to lose any data from the text boxes. We want to preserve everything as is. Therefore, we pass in the song model to it. So this is our add and edit, and next let's do the delete actions.